Football. You can hear us on Blog Talk Radio / Her Fantasy Football and on iTunes. You can also hear us on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Saturday night from 8 to 10 Eastern. Make sure to subscribe to us on herfantasyfootball.com, and you can chat with us on Twitter at HerFantasyFB and on Facebook / Her Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Courtney Kirby.
And I'm Ashley Williams.
And I'm Brandon Lee.
And this is our wrap-up show.
No middle name for Brandon, apparently.
Well, Courtney left it out of the outline, so I had to read it.
Because Brandon stays on script so much.
So frequently. Yep.
Love it. Love it. Well, we will go over highlights for each team and talk about our favorite moments this season. At the beginning of the season, we draw out from a hat determining which NFL team we will be covering for the whole season. I always am lucky and get 10, and the other girls get 11. So we choose for the odd team. I just am lucky. I get the odd team. So who is your favorite team to cover, and which team are you praying you don't get in 2016? Ashley?
Well, my favorite team to cover, I would say it was probably the Jags. I enjoyed the Jags just because they had so much interesting stuff. But I would say that every year I hope that I won't get the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
But that was mainly for the fact that I didn't want to cover Colin Kaepernick. Now I have no idea what team he's actually going to land on, so obviously that will be the team that I do not want to cover next year. But let's say, for the pure fact that the Niners, I still don't want to cover them because they literally have no idea what they're doing. None. As an organization, coaching, players, they have no clue what they are doing. And I don't really want to fall down the rabbit hole with them. Now, with that said, that's with Colin Kaepernick or not. That's just straight up the Niners. But he did have surgery, and we do wish you a speedy recovery, Colin Kaepernick. I hope that works out well. So I wanted there was something nice in there after I'm just like, Colin Kaepernick. But I also would not love to cover Johnny Manziel's team because I just think I'd get too frustrated about it.
That would be bad, too. Good call. Mm-hmm. Brandon?
I'm a glutton for punishment, so I think the most entertaining team to cover was the Browns. Because hashtag Billy Manziel, that's the new guy in town. Now, nice. I just want to make sure that we discuss this in full. Johnny Manziel reportedly, after sharing on Instagram a photo of himself and his dog on his carpet, being like, oh, Saturday nights, went to Vegas in a blonde wig and a fake mustache to party. Now, I'm going to start with...
At least he put the effort in.
First of all, this is actually very sad. This is classic addict behavior. It's actually really clinically sad. Like lying, being places that you said you weren't.
Amanda Bynes?
Yeah. Just.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine a party with Johnny Manziel and Amanda Bynes at the same time?
Ooh, this is bad.
Brother Lindsay Lohan.
Calling yourself Billy. Putting on
was it a redneck kind of wig? Was it like the lawn, like mullet style?
I don't know. I mean, we don't have a confirmed picture yet, but supposedly he was in the club in a wig. Like, what would you even do if you're in a club and you see a guy with a wig and a fake mustache? I'd say, I'm not talking to you.
Oh, for sure.
And I would actually be like, you're hilarious, and I would talk to that person. Because that's how I roll.
You're awesome.
It's probably why I'm the last sister to get married.
Maybe.
Probably. Yeah.
Brandon, did we lose you? You know, before this starts, we talk for 2 hours before we push play, and the second we push play, we lose Brandon.
It's true, and her face is in the middle of a laugh on our screen right now, which is fantastic.
It's so good. It's so good.
What about you, Courtney?
I will say, for sure, I would like to cover the Washington Redskins next year.
Ooh.
You know, I have this odd relationship with Kirk Cousins, and although I'm not convinced that he's going to have another year like he did this year, I still like to talk about him every week. I just love him. And I'm kind of the same way as you, Ashley. Wherever Chip Kelly falls, I do not want to cover them. I do not want to cover them. Although I don't think he can destroy a team within an off season, but it's possible.
It is possible.
Chip Kelly could do a lot.
Do you think he'll land in the NFL, or do you think he'll go back to college?
I don't know. He's getting interviewed by people in the NFL, so I'm assuming he'll probably get a job in the NFL, which makes me want to cry. I really hope he's going back to college.
Do you know what the worst nightmare is? Chip Kelly going to the 49ers.
Chip Kelly going to the 49ers.
And then
Or
I
the
have
Cleveland
to cover
Browns.
that team.
Or the
Oh my
Browns.
gosh, it'd be so good.
Browns would be good. You know what? Chip Kelly at the Browns, I might actually want that team.
A Johnny Manziel, Chip Kelly combo.
Combo?
That
Yeah.
could be interesting all
It
year.
could be the worst and best thing I've ever been part of. But yeah, that's kind of where I land. For the most part, wherever Chip Kelly goes, I do not want them. And I really want the Redskins. Although I know they're your team, Ashley. You get them every year.
I do get the Redskins.
And I don't want
like
to take
the
them away
Reds.
from you, but
I kind of oddly feel the same in a weird way, probably because of my connection with the Redskins at this point, that I kind of want to cover whatever team RG3 goes to. And if it's the Cowboys, talk about a hilarious team to cover all year.
oh yeah, for sure. Brandon, we lost you there for a second. Who's your team that you do want?
Yeah, that was so weird because I could see you guys and then all of a sudden I didn't. It was weird. I had the Packers, the 49ers, and the Bears for 3 years in a row, I think.
Hmm.
I could step away from those. Just take
Okay.
a step back. And actually, the Packers were the most depressing.
They
They were
were the most depressing this year.
Bad.
Yeah. Jordy deserves a new contract. I don't know what you guys think.
Oh, yeah.
All right, which team are you excited for in 2016, aka we always make our Super Bowl predictions. So who's the 2017 Super Bowl champs? Brandon?
I went crazy. I am going to say the Baltimore Ravens.
Nice.
No, I think they're going to bounce back in a big way. Everyone on that team was hurt. Everyone. They got down
Yeah.
to the fourth string. It was nuts. I think they sneak into the playoffs in the wild card, and I think they make some noise. I don't know if they'll win the Super Bowl per se, but I'm thinking about going to Vegas and just putting down some money. I've never done that. I've never gone gambling like that in anywhere. But I don't know. I think that no one's going to think about them, and they could sneak in.
I like it. And nobody thinks about Flacco ever, so I think that's a possibility.
Yeah.
I'm very interested with what the Giants will do next year with the new coach, right in the middle of Eli's prime. They have the receivers. They need work in the running game, and the defense, let's be honest. But I'm interested to see. They've had Coughlin for a long time, so it'll be intriguing.
Be careful what you wish for.
I love Coughlin.
I was so sad. I was legitimately sad all day.
I know,
And
it's
just
really
seeing your
depressing.
players like Justin Tuck sharing their stories, and Eli is like a complete mess at the moment. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
Eli crying really was. Oof.
yeah,
It was
brutal.
bad. Ashley, what about you?
Well, I'm not sure that I would say either of the teams are Super Bowl bound per se. It'll probably be boring and be the Patriots per usual, but I would say the Bengals because the team has so much potential and has my beloved Red Rocket on the team. But if you recall, the running back choices frustrated me all season long. So I might say the Jets, as they are really close to being in the playoffs. I think they could make a playoff run. Their run. I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl though. But I am really also excited for the Jags because I think that they are chock full of potential there, and I'm especially to see how TJ Yeldon steps up next year because I think that's going to really kind of bring that offense together and really fill it out.
There you go. All right, real quick, ladies, who was your favorite draft pick this preseason? I would have to say for me, it was Danny Woodhead, just because, although it wasn't always consistent, he wasn't always a smart play, but he did win me 2 championships this year, so I'm going to say him.
Fair enough.
Love.
My favorite would be tie between Cam Newton and Allen Robinson because I was able to get both of them really low in comparison to other guys in their position. I was able to get Cam in our family league, the 10th overall pick in mine, and the 94th overall for the entire league. And I was able to get Allen Robinson as my 8th pick and 74th overall. And Cam ended up being the highest scoring player in all of fantasy football.
Mhm.
Robinson was the 4th highest wide receiver. So, yeah. I'll take
Yeah,
that all
winning.
day.
Brandon, what about you?
Alan Hearns and Eric Decker tie.
Ty.
Yeah, I got both of them in a lot of leagues, actually.
I was
And
gonna say,
think-
well, when you're in 40 leagues, you know.
So did you have both in the same league anywhere?
yeah, I did. Well, they were, I mean, they were all of our sleepers. All three of us really liked both of
Yeah.
them. So, Eric Decker was the 10th highest scoring wide receiver on the year in standard scoring, caught 80 passes for 1,027 yards and 12 touchdowns with missing a game with an injury.
Mhm.
And then Alan Hearns also missed a game, 15th highest scoring of the wide receivers, caught 64 passes, 1,031 yards, and 10 touchdowns. So, yeah, awesome.
And he missed.
Awesome.
games too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the recap of our teams. We will start off with the NFC and the Carolina Panthers.
Well, I would say that the highlight of covering the Panthers is Cam Newton. Period.
Newton.
Hello. #1 fantasy player of the year, just like Ashley said. Sweetie with the kids, other than that one mom from Tennessee. who
Crazy
doesn't know
mom.
what to
Crazy
tell
mom gone rogue.
her daughter about sportsmanship. Oh, man. And then he had a baby, named his son Chosen.
Love it.
Congrats.
Love it. Love it.
Kind of like in the Apple realm for me, but
Hey, Chosen it is. Overall, a fun year, 389.08 fantasy points standard scoring, 35 passing touchdowns, tied for second in the league. So everyone who keeps talking about him not having the stats,
it
I'm
makes
like,
no sense to me. It actually infuriates me.
he's second only to Tom Brady.
It's
What do you mean he doesn't have the stats? What? And then he also had 10 rushing touchdowns on top of that. He was responsible for 45 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean he doesn't have the stats?
He's not the chosen one. You see what I
In
did there?
16 games. He's not. Yeah.
Do you know he is tied for the 5th most rushing touchdowns in the league? That means out of all the running backs.
Love that. I love
Stop it.
Cam. I was questioning whether you to put him or Jonathan Stewart because that was the biggest surprise for me. That guy stayed healthy for at least 75% of the season.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then Greg Olson. What a good call by us again, too, being like, hey, he's a top guy, people. Get it together. I'd say the only low light was their loss to the Falcons. I kind of thought they'd do it.
No, I was hoping they would.
Yeah.
Sad. That is sad. Atlanta Falcons. My high for Atlanta has to be both Devontae Freeman and Julio Jones. Freeman had only had 3 games under 10 fantasy points and 4 games in a row with 20 fantasy points or more and standard scoring. That's just crazy. Julio Jones saw more than 10 targets in all of his games but 2 and finished second out of wide receivers in fantasy points in standard leagues. Both of them, were the only light, but a very bright light from the Atlanta Falcons. And the low has to be poor little Matt Ryan, man. How he imploded.
What happened?
He finished his season tied for 3rd in interceptions and 2nd in fumbles. It's not the stats that you really want going into your next season. His overall fantasy points were less than Ryan Tannehill.
That's
Blows my
sad.
mind. Yeah,
I like that there's a
that's
bar
not
here and
good.
it's called Ryan Tannehill.
Well,
Yeah.
Ryan Tannehill was so bad this year. We all thought that he was going to have a much better year this year, and he imploded as well. And Matt Ryan was worse than him. So that's really sad. So
You would love this, Courtney. I called Kyle Rudolph the Ryan Tannehill of tight ends.
Really, that's nice.
Isn't he,
That's
though?
mean. That is mean.
Nobody is. When he's in a good matchup, he never performs well.
Oh, true.
Yeah,
And he'll get 20 points on your bench.
that's right.
Although he gets more like 10 points on your bench.
Yeah.
For tight ends, that's 20.
Yeah.
So anyway, hopefully next year he'll have a bounce back year because I do like Matt Ryan. I don't want him to feel bad. New Orleans Saints, Ashley.
The Saints had a very up and down season for me this year, and they were really difficult to predict at times. But my highlight was the fact that for the most part, they stuck with Mark Ingram as the bell cow. Thank you. There is nothing more frustrating than a committee, especially when the part of the committee is not worthy of it. I'm looking at you, CJ Spiller. So I was very, very happy with that. Now, my low light was the slow start of Brandon Cooks. That was really irritating. He was drafted very high, and he didn't see to pick any steam up until week 8. But luckily for Cook's owners, he came through in a big way at the end. So,
and announced today the coach is back. Coach is back.
We all
Which,
knew he'd
by
be
the
back.
way, yeah,
why was that even a thing?
and I felt like it was weird the Pagano thing too. Although that made a little more sense for sure, but the grass is not always greener, people,
No.
especially
No.
when it comes to coaching.
That's right. That's right. All right, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, talk about coaching.
Whew. Yeah, so today Lovie Smith got fired, and it's unbelievable. He was only there 2 years. He just got the rookie quarterback, and I didn't think he did that bad a job.
I
Doug
didn't
Martin
think so
had
either.
a much better year than any of us
Much better year.
expected.
And
Way
James
better.
Winston played better than I expected.
Vincent
Yeah.
Jackson was on and off the field. I mean,
Even
And
their
what's
defense
it-
had highlights.
what is his fault? It's not Lovey's fault that Mike Evans can't catch the ball.
But
That's-
Mike Evans is amazing, Courtney.
Right, Courtney. There's no
Yeah.
problem with Mike Evans, apparently.
It's true.
You have no idea. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Again, grass is greener. I don't see any coaching candidates out there that are going to improve Tampa Bay any more than Lovey did. I thought he did a great job from year 1 to year 2, but whatever. Who are we? Highlight of the year for Tampa Bay would be Doug Martin, like you said. Second in rushing yards, 1,402. Third in overall points, 199.3 out of all of the running backs. So that's great. Because you know what? We kind of thought he was over. He had this great rookie season, and then it was like,
Yep.
"Phew." So good for him, because now he's going to get a contract, and one that's worthy of him. And then
Which
lower
means
light,
he'll do terrible next year.
right. The second he signs it, if you're in a dynasty league, you go, "Excuse me, I have a trade offer."
I'd like to get rid of Doug Martin, please. Yeah, do that ASAP.
Yeah, you're welcome. Mike Evans and his many, many drops was definitely the low light. He ended the season, and this is shocking, only the 27th highest scoring wide receiver. He
Wow.
didn't even make the top 25, and the
He was, I
guy
think, 13th.
was getting 10 targets a game on average.
But he's
and
not the
still in the
problem.
Not the problem.
Arizona Cardinals. Oh, sorry, Brandon. You want to add something to that?
No, just tears.
Oh, tears. Okay.
I mean,
Fine.
there's nothing else to add. I just I forever about Mike Evans, so you should stop me.
Nice. The Cardinals high, I will say, it was nice to see Larry Fitzgerald have a nice start to the season, but that ended before it began, so I'm not going with him. I'm going to have to go with Mr. Consistent Carson Palmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you had him, which I did, you got him for nothing in the draft. And he was good for 18 fantasy points no matter who they played, which means the world. He didn't end the season as well as he started, but he still stayed healthy and landed 5th quarterback in fantasy points. So, awesome. And my low, there weren't many lows for this 13-3 team, I must say. But personally, I am sad that Chris Johnson wasn't able to make it through a season as a Cardinal. He was doing well for a while there, but insert David Johnson there, tears dry up, and everything is good again. Dun dun. Seattle Seahawks. Ashley.
Well, we all know how much I love covering the Seahawks. But they at least made it interesting this year. I will give them that. So
Yeah.
my highlight is that the Seahawks finally discovered their wide receiver position this season.
It's
It's
exciting.
like, oh my gosh, there's actually guys that run down the field. Did you know this? Who are
Weird.
those guys? That's crazy. Granted, they were forced to because they lost any running back living in the state of Washington. But nonetheless, let's hope they take this
Jimmy
newfound
Graham.
success in the air to next season as well. Which brings me, as you said, Corinne, to my low light, which for me is a tie between the lack of production, certainly touchdown-wise, for Jimmy Graham. Although I would like to point out that we told you to not depend on him this year, so I can't
Yes, we
fully use
did.
that one. I'm going to
Yes, we
say
did.
it was Marshawn Lynch when he went out. Getting hurt was huge, and even before that, he was completely unproductive due to being, he was injured a majority of the season. So, for me, Marshawn Lynch was a killer for a lot of people, and that was really disappointing.
Definitely a low. St. Louis Rams. This is going to be a tough one, Ashley.
Yeah, this one should be short. The highlight is the only player on the team, Todd Gurley. I will say I'm excited to see how he will do with his sophomore season, and I was thrilled that he came out this season guns a-blazing. I mean, he was out the first few games, and when he came back, he hit the ground running, and so I was really impressed with that, especially as a rookie, and I think he did a lot of good preparation beforehand, so I was pleased with that. Now, my low light is the rest of the team, but if I had to be specific, it would be Nick Foles. Wow, did that guy disappoint? Right? Such high hopes before the season. You know, we all thought this is going to be good because he's got the deep ball threat, which actually, you know, goes into his wheelhouse of what his skill set. But complete failure. Complete utter failure. And it is sad that they've already announced that Case Keenum will be their starter, for 2016. Oh man.
Oh, please. They're going to draft a quarterback. By the way, how does Jeff Fisher have a job?
That is a fantastic question. When guys like Lovie Smith get fired and Jeff Fisher's still there, granted, Jeff Fisher has 0 players on his team other than Todd Gurley this year.
The GM needs to get fired.
The GM needs to be fired ASAP. Like, how that guy even is allowed to walk into the building is frightening to me.
I'm not familiar with the team office, but maybe the GM did get fired the year before, and therefore this GM, at least he got Gurley, and maybe he'll do better. Who knows? But yeah, it's rough.
The team needs help.
Has Jeff Fisher ever had a good team?
I don't think so. Not that maybe I don't know. I don't know his record.
I mean, he had a better team than the Rams, but he's never had, I don't think, good teams. I'll have to look on that while I talk about the next one.
49ers, Brandon.
Well, at least we're going to save some time here. I'd say her fantasy football terrible theaters that included Jim Tomsula or Blaine Gabbert. Those were really funny. That would be the highlight. They did give us a lot of laughter. Jim Tomsula in those press conferences was divine. And Blaine Gabbert alone at his press conference was maybe my highlight of the whole season. And the low light is the team. So my husband and I put together, and he really helped me a lot, a list of the top 25 quarterbacks and top 25 tight ends, top 50 running backs, top 50 wide receivers in FanDuel, because I also work for FanDuel and I was writing an article. Only one player made the list from San Francisco, any of the lists. And it was Anquan Bolden, and he was number 44.
Yeah.
No one was startable.
Again, not surprising.
Carlos Hyde had that one game.
I don't know if you were on back on it, Brandon, but I was like, my nightmare is that Chip Kelly goes to the Niners.
Yeah.
Gosh,
that's where he wants to be.
Bad. It'd be so bad.
I know. I want him to be in college.
I'm actually going to propose that we should be allowed to do a trade when we do our draft picks.
No one's going to trade for you for San Francisco.
Someone might. Courtney might. She loves Chip Kelly.
True that, Ashley. True that. All right, the Vikings, the high. There's only one person on the team again worth a high. Clearly, this is Adrian Peterson. And you girls were not believers at the beginning of the season, I must say this. And after his week 1 bad performance, you guys were like, told you so, I told you so. And I was like, screw you, just you wait, Mr. Higgins. And sure enough, he ended his season at the ripe age of 30 with more rushing yards than any other running back and tied for the most rushing touchdowns. Booyah!
I mean, half the running backs are broken, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's true, Brandon.
And he still bores me, but
He still bores me.
I don't know why. Like, you watch the Vikings, for me, like, I'm so surprised they're a playoff team because I feel like it's a snooze fest the entire game. I'm like, oh, has anyone done anything yet? Huh.
Oh, you don't like it when AP breaks off for 25 yards? That doesn't excite you?
I don't.
Because you didn't buy him because you weren't a believer. Maybe because
I was not a believer. I'm saying when I watch the playoff game, I will still be bored this weekend.
It is boring, and I'll tell you, it's because my low, and not because I don't like him. It's just because it is. My low is Teddy Bridgewater. I think we thought that the Vikings were going to throw more this year than they did, and they didn't. He only threw the ball more than 40 times once, and he had 9 games under 30 throws. That's bananas. And I thought he might even run the ball more, but when Alex Smith has 300 more yards rushing than you do, You know that was not the case.
It's because Alex Smith is,
The best. MVP of the AFC.
If he wins the Super Bowl and he gets
Yeah.
the MVP, I'm calling you first, Courtney.
Yep, me too. First time
Well, who else would get it? Macklin, who's throwing in the ball? Alex Smith. Alex Smith has to get it. Jamal Charles isn't on the team right now.
Probably Justin Houston.
Kendrick West could if he has a good game.
Well, Spencer Ware's been out.
Stop it. You
touching
have
him.
Spencer Ware, yeah.
Alex Smith is the game manager.
You know, Courtney,
He
if the
deserves the
Broncos
ball.
don't win, I'm rooting and I'm rooting Alex Smith has a
Hey, we're a Kansas
destroys
City
it in a
Chiefs
Super
family
Bowl.
in my house. My girls all have Chiefs jersey, and so don't you worry. My oldest especially is rooting for the Chiefs. So, hey, Joe Flacco's won Super Bowls. I'm not saying that Alex Smith can't win a Super Bowl. I'm just saying he's not a great quarterback.
We don't have enough time for this debate.
Anyways, let's move on.
I just like hearing the debate. That's all. It's funny to me.
That's
The guy just gets no respect. No respect, Alex Smith. No respect.
it. Oh, Green Bay Packers, Brandon.
So James Jones and his mini renaissance was a highlight. He scored at least one touchdown in all but one of his first 6 games. Then it went downhill.
Sure
But
did.
there were 6 games of glory.
It was exciting for a moment.
For half
Yeah.
a
Lil
moment.
Knight is definitely Aaron Rodgers. If you watch the tape, this guy is he's getting zero protection, and no one can catch the ball. It's unbelievable. Actually, watching the minute,
It's really bad.
Randall Cobb is a disaster. Devontae Adams, that experiment should be over. Jordy Nelson's on the phone with his agent. He's like, hey, let's do coffee again. I'm just telling you.
Just think if you were a homer, if you were a Green Bay Packer homer this year,
Ugh.
and you drafted all of them. I mean,
Well, you're last place.
You're last
For sure.
place.
Although for me, the bigger
So
issue
bad.
is that it really showed Randall Cobb's flaws. Like, yes, it became evident they need Jordy Nelson, but for me, I was just like, Randall Cobb, bro, what's going on here?
Well, he's Eric Decker. He's a wide
Yeah.
receiver too. You put him in that wide receiver 1, and they fold.
Yeah.
He has to be a wide receiver too.
I completely agree. And also, I think that, I think they were trying to mix it up a little bit. They had a lot of issues. Eddie Lacy did not come into the season ready to play. He just didn't. There's no getting around that. He's still barely there. I actually tweeted out on, it was one of my more popular tweets on Sunday where I was like, how is Steven Jackson in playing shape and Eddie Lacy is not?
Yeah.
Still. And then Devontae Adams just forgot how to catch a football. Makes no sense. So anyway, I was going to say that Aaron Rodgers ended the regular season as the 7th highest scoring quarterback, and Kirk Cousins only scored 8 fewer points than him on the season, and that's without going over 15 points in his first 3 games.
Yeah.
So Cousins didn't get even remotely okay until week 4 or 5, and then he still was right at the Aaron Rodgers level. It's scary. And also quarterbacks that scored more than him: Cam Newton, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, Blake Bortles, Carson Palmer, and Drew Brees. All of them. And we came into this thinking he was going to be one of the – some people took him number 1 in the draft overall.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sad.
You were a big Aaron Rodgers fan.
Yeah. And you know what? I was also a big Eddie Lacy fan. 25th ranked running back on the season.
I'm
Terrible.
surprised he's that high.
Me too.
Detroit Lions, Ashley.
Well, ladies, I've got to say it. Jim Bob Cooter. I'm going to miss saying this every week because dear Jim Bob Cooter has made my Lions write-ups so much more pleasant. Honestly, there weren't many highlights from this team. It's kind of sad to say. So I guess I'll give my highlight was for me when Matthew Stafford went off on Thanksgiving, which we predicted. So that was definitely the high of the year for me. And at least after that point, he kind of proved himself to be a streaming quarterback, but not a whole lot else going on with this team. But my low light would be Amir Abdullah. There's a lot of hype around him, and in the end, not a whole lot of production. So he was flashy on special teams, and a lot of people think that he was a little better as a running back than he actually was. But his actual running left fairly little to be desired. So I'm bummed that we are back in the committee situation because it's the worst place to be.
Chicago Bears, Brandon.
I think the highlight was Jeremy Langford's back-to-back games of 20 or more fantasy points at San Diego and St. Louis.
Yeah.
That was like a kind of like a fun little thing. Low light, man, there were a lot actually. I'm gonna say them forcing Matt Forte out, one of my favorite players of all time.
Ugh.
Everyone knows Matt Forte was still the 9th highest scoring running back. He missed 3 games, and his team didn't want him to be playing as well as he was. That's how good he is. He's going to play somewhere else. Also, Alshon Jeffries.
Come to the Broncos.
Come to Butthead. Do you remember that?
Come
Wait,
like Beavis and Butthead?
Yeah.
That was a great show.
90s. Alshon Jeffries' soft tissue issues are really concerning to me.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I think this is very bad. And I think actually Kevin White might be a big sleeper next year. He didn't get to play at all this year. He was a rookie. Got injured in the preseason. They shut him down. John Fox is super conservative about that kind of stuff anyway. But it's a weird situation. You got to keep your eye on this one. If you're in a dynasty league, I am shopping Alshon Jeffrey.
Bye-bye. Washington Redskins, Ashley.
Well, as Courtney mentioned, I've had these babies for a while. So they're my long-term babies, the Redskins. But it's a tough call for me because of this, because of the history I have with this team. Between Jordan Reed, who had a heck of a season and did not get injured, which was the most surprising part to me, and great news because the guy has got serious concussion issues, so thrilled with that. Or Kirk Cousins finally getting a chance and rolling with it, which was great. And congrats to both of these guys on getting to the playoffs and to the whole team. That's huge for the Redskins. So I guess that would be my high. I was just really excited to see both these players do well.
Real
My
fast.
low.
It made the coaches out there take note of this. Stop this quarterback competition where quarterbacks feel threatened their job every week and just roll with one and see how it turns out. Look how Kirk Cousins went. Kirk Cousins didn't do nearly as good of a job when he was going back and forth between McCoy and RG3. I know there's injuries involved in that, but give me a break. Just go with one.
Agreed.
Brian.
You heard her.
All right, sorry.
Well, my low light will take 2 seconds. It was clearly the running game. That's not even a question. It was truly awful. I can't think of a worse running game, honestly, in the NFL than them. Matt Jones, we all know I did not enjoy. Nothing but hype there. And Alfred Morris, talk about disappointment. And you can kind of say the same thing as to the quarterbacks. Just pick a running back and roll with it, and just have one be change of pace. Like, stop trying to do these committees in a situation when neither is doing well. At least give one a chance to get a rhythm going.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Philadelphia Eagles, the high. There is no question that it's got to be the firing of Chip Kelly. That was my high. I don't know if it was the high for the team. I think it was the high for the team, but it was definitely my high was when Chip Kelly got fired. Jordan Matthews did finish the season with 3 nice games, but that can't be my high. It just can't be because he screwed us over the majority of the season. So I will have to say, adios, Chip Kelly. Thank you very much. And it even came soon. Even came before week 17. Or after week 17, so I'm really happy about that. And my low was tough too. I almost said Chip Kelly again, but I will pick the rookie that everyone thought was going to be huge this year. Nelson Aguilar was not so much. He only had 1 game over 4.5 points and 1 game over 3.5 points. Yet he was still owned in 20% of fantasy leagues today when I checked.
That's so crazy.
Stud.
Seth Roberts, who had nearly 50 more fantasy points than Aguilar, was only owned in 3% of leagues. Just saying, I hope all 20% of those leagues were dynasty leagues, and you're just praying that he's going to get better because why hold on somebody like that on your bench? Why would you do that?
Don't
Why
check
would you
out
ever
on your
do
bench,
that? I
guys.
just don't get that. It's beyond me. Anyways, for the Giants, my high was the ODB, OBJ, my man. He was definitely the high for the Giants. He was only behind Julio Jones in fantasy points by 16 points in standard leagues, but saw 45 less targets than Julio. So that's a lot. He had some huge games, and I think he will only grow this offseason and be better for next year, especially after that suspension. I really feel like this offseason he's going to be like really
Got
focused.
something to prove.
Yeah, he's got like some growing up to do, and I think he's acknowledged that. He's not too big to think that he's got room to be better, and I think that's just amazing that he's humble like that, you know.
Did you see that letter he wrote to his fans?
I didn't see it entirely.
You literally just quoted it.
Really?
That he has a lot of growing up to do, and thanks for sticking with me through this roller coaster of a season.
Aww.
Yeah, so, you know. Yeah.
Taking
You basically took
accountability.
the words
I like
right out of
it.
his mouth. Yeah. That's why I thought you saw it. I was like, oh, let's talk about it.
No.
This was the opening
No,
up.
but that's the thing is like, you know, like
She's a mind reader.
how cool is it that he knows that?
Yeah,
That he's
I
just
agree.
like he's humble enough, because some guys are just so big-headed they just don't think they have room to grow. AJ McCarron, whatever your name is.
Karen.
Yeah, so anyway.
Ultimate disrespect, always with Courtney.
Next time we need
You
Mike
do it on
Evans.
purpose. I know you
own
do.
up.
A.G. McCowan or whatever.
Or whatever your name is. You.
I
I'll
was
learn your
gonna do
name
it.
when I need to.
I was gonna do it, Nelson too, but I forgot. And I would say that the running game for Richard, but Richard Jennings came on the last few weeks, so I will say Tom Coughlin leaving the Giants. I think that has to be the low for the Giants. In general, it's just a really sad time. It makes me super sad, and I'll speak for the rest of us. We hope you do well in whatever you do, and if that's coaching, we'll be cheering for the team that you're coaching for, even if it's the 49ers. We love you. Dallas Cowboys, Brandon.
Well, it's hard to find a highlight, but I'm going to go Darren McFadden because he was a huge surprise.
Yes.
He played in all 16 games, and he played hard. After week 6, he averaged 18.4 carries per game. Oh! I can't believe they did that to him, and then he made it. I mean, we were worried. I said he's going to break in 2. Some games he's getting 29 carries.
It's crazy. That workload, I was shocked they didn't break.
I know, but congratulations. And the low light was definitely Greg Hardy. And I'm just glad I didn't have to talk about the defense much because their offense was so bad that it just was like, this is just a disaster. But yeah, you know, all that controversy, articles, just the whole thing made me sick to my tummy.
And a quick shout out, because this made me remind me of it, Darren McFadden, but at Raw B Yizzle, we talked about you on our SiriusXM show. I don't know if you have SiriusXM or not, but much appreciation for you doing what we talked about last week in our podcast with the Thriller post.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. I saved it in my phone. You're awesome, and we really appreciate you. Thank you for your kind letter and your sweet words. You're great, and we really appreciate you, and congrats to your championship. And on that, we will move on. But before we move on to the AFC, ladies, tell me 3 predictions this year you were dead on about.
Well, I was really bummed you made me limit it to 3, but
We're on a time schedule here. Time crunch.
I kid. The first one for me was at the beginning of the season when I said that Brandon Marshall is still Brandon Marshall and that you shouldn't be too worried about drafting him. And I hope you did, as he was the 3rd highest scoring wide receiver on the year. Now, I know we were all freaked out, being like, why in the world did they get Brandon Marshall for only a 5th-round pick? Because that is so dirt cheap for a receiver who has been top of his game for years.
Yeah.
And so I understand why the hesitation. But Brandon Marshall's Brandon Marshall. So that was my first one. My second one was in week 16 when I said that you should still play Todd Gurley, despite the fact that he was going up against a very stout Seahawks defense. Now, what was really interesting about this one was that I was initially like, don't play him. I don't like him this week. But then after much thinking and not only talking a bunch of people off the ledge, I had to talk myself off the ledge. And it wasn't until our SiriusXM show that Saturday that I was like, you know what, guys? No, play him. Gotta play him. I feel okay about it. It's still gonna happen. And you know what? He ended up the 11th highest scoring running back that week. So he was still certainly of starting status. So that was my second. And my third one is so random, but it was last week when I said you should play Kobe Flater.
I know.
It was
I text Ashley right after it happened. I was like,
it was such a risky play in your championship because I get it. Kobe Fleeter has been dog all year.
And who's throwing him the ball? Who threw him the ball? I think it was Freeman. It was Freeman.
It was Freeman.
Freeman to Fleener touchdown. Who
I
knew?
think Freeman had more touchdowns than Eddie Lacy did this year.
And that was so bizarre. They just kept streaming. They kept like swapping quarterbacks. But I shouldn't say he was awful because, as we all know, the Colts struggled this year. But he didn't even break into the top 20 tight ends on the season. But in Week 17, he was the second highest scoring tight end. So I hope you guys like him.
One play.
It was a very crazy random call of mine.
That's hilarious. I loved the fact that they went back and forth with Freeman and what's his face,
Lindley.
Yeah, Lingley. I thought it was kind of fun because it's like all of a sudden a big play would happen. You're like, who was?
Which one was it? Which one was it?
You know, it's not those. I mean, like neither one of them had worked hard to get this position. They'd been there for 5 days. You know, I thought it was fun. I thought it was good stuff. I have to say that one of my best predictions was that at the beginning of preseason, I said it's going to be Devontae Freeman over Tevin Coleman. Everybody else was on the Tevin Coleman train, getting drafted way higher than Devontae Freeman. I was like, no, it's Freeman. I think it's going to be Freeman. And sure enough, we all know it was Freeman. And it's never popular to bench one of your studs, but I said that Antonio Brown was going to have a bad game in Week 6. And he sure did with only 2.4 points against the Arizona Cardinals. And I did bench him in my league. So I think that was one of my better calls. And in Week 12, I told you to pick up Will Tye, the tight end for the Giants, and I am sure that he saved some people's teams going into playoffs. He averaged 8.2 fantasy points in the last 6 weeks of the season. So decent for a tight end.
I misread the question, but I'm going to
Brandon,
I
it's because we were all like, wait, what?
I told people to start Cam Newton against Seattle when he went into Seattle, and this was at the beginning of the season, and everyone was still in awe of Seattle, and I was right. It was one of his 30-point games. Fantastic. Also, in general, I was really high on Cam Newton going into the season. I was like, I don't know why everyone's sleeping on this guy. Like, he's really good. He's good at football. So glad that worked out. It was almost like people forgot that he was injured last year, and that's why his numbers dipped.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a weird. Remember, just offseason, everyone was just down on him, and I was like, what? We were all right about the Jaguars.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us, thought that Blake Bortles and Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns were the real deal. So that was great. And then, I had kind of weird teams that were kind of depressing to be right about, where I was like, don't start anyone from San Francisco all the time. I mean, that was right. But can I claim that?
Right. Sure.
I mean,
That's technically 4 brands, so stop achieving.
Stop, yeah, exactly. Well, again, I'm not quite sure that last one counts.
All right. Tell me one time you were way off in your prediction.
Melvin Gordon. Whoa. I thought he'd be the top rookie of the year. I thought that position in San Diego was ripe for the taking. I thought San Diego would be better. I don't know how Mike McCoy has a job. How did Lovie Smith lose? I'm going to start freaking out about all the coaches that I can't believe are still in the league. Jeff Fisher, Mike McCoy, Lovie Smith's out. Anyway, that's where I was wrong.
There you go, Ashley.
Well, I was way off a few times, and all of those times generally involved Chris Ivory.
Mm-hmm.
He was hard.
He was hard. He went off on some games, and he had some good matchups where he just didn't even show up to play. He just did it, and I hate when players make a liar out of me. And Chris Ivory and I had a few choice words on Sundays between me and my TV, and because I hate when I tell people to play someone and then they don't do well. I actually hate that more than when my team doesn't do well. So I'm like, oh, I told people to play this person, and then they don't perform, and then I just feel awful. And Chris Ivory made me feel awful a few times.
Liar. You're a liar.
Liar. You're a liar.
I have to say, I know I'm not alone in this with other fantasy analysts, but Week 16 with the Pittsburgh Steelers, that was really bad.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm not 100% sure I said this, but I'm pretty sure start them all is what I said. It's Baltimore.
Yeah.
Start them all. And the only person you should have started was D'Angelo Williams. So, I mean, yeah. And that was your championship week for most people. That was really bad. But it wasn't my fault. It was Pittsburgh's fault. How about that?
Yeah.
It's Pittsburgh. See how we're honest about our mistakes too? See, we don't mind sharing those things. Let's get into the AFC. New England Patriots, Brandon.
Well, the highlight was Tom Brady's 7-game streak of 22 or more fantasy points at the beginning of the season. That was crazy, and especially because a lot of people didn't even draft him because they thought he was going to be suspended for deflating footballs.
True.
Oh, those days. So the low light would be the injuries. I never feel bad for the Patriots, but I almost feel bad for the Patriots.
Whoa.
Sort of. Deion Lewis, Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola, although he's back now, but kind of. LeGarrette Blount. Brady scored 5.26 points in Week 17 against Miami. And yeah, they sat him, but not soon enough to make 5.26 points make sense in my head. It's really bad.
I've got some regulars that think that New England Patriots purposely lost so they wouldn't have to play the Chiefs in the first round of playoffs. Because the Chiefs right now are hot. Like, they're hot, you know? Like, they're
well,
crazy
they
hot
won't
right now.
necessarily have to play the Chiefs. The Chiefs still have to beat Houston. And, I mean, we're all, like, sleeping on Houston, but Houston's playing at home. The Chiefs have a really bad secondary, and DeAndre Hopkins is out there and just catches insane balls. Brian Hoyer is back from his 2 concussions within a month. If he gets hit again, we got trouble, but he is back. I don't know. I'm not
on it. I don't put anything past Belichick, but everybody wants home field advantage. Everyone.
I don't think he wants to go to Denver.
Mm-mm.
I actually think that Denver might go to the Super Bowl and lose, but I think they might go to the Super Bowl again because of their home field advantage.
I don't know.
Come on.
I mean, you ready for Peyton to lose another one?
You're so mean.
I don't appreciate
You're a really bad person.
Yep.
You are going into fantasy
realist.
karma hell right now. That's what's going on. All right, Ashley, New York Jets.
This team was my baby this year, and I was so happy that they did well. This was my little pumpkins. Loved them. So while it's tough to not mention Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall's performance because it was fantastic, I expected them to do well. So I'm not going to put that as my highlight. My highlight will be my bearded wonder, Ryan Fitzpatrick, winning the role. And I will say that he won the role because he was kept it once Geno Smith did come back healthy. Props to Todd Bowles for not caving and going with Geno Smith and sticking with Fitzy. Clearly that was the right choice. And you guys were so close to making the playoffs. So that's kind of my low light. My low light is that I loved this team and I was so bummed when they didn't get into the playoffs. It was hard.
And Fitzy completely imploded in the fourth quarter. That was sad.
Against his old team, the whole thing. Oh,
Yeah, it was awful. It was really bad. Buffalo Bills, Ashley.
My highlight was the running game was great this year. You know, McCoy did great, Carlos Williams did great, Gillislee did great at the end there, and when McCoy went down, Carlos Williams stepped up and was right there ready to go. And Gillislee stepped up at the end of the year as well. So that certainly makes me feel really good about this team's prospects for next year. So I'm really thrilled about that. My low, really the only low light for me was Tyrod Taylor getting hurt, and same with LaShawn McCoy. Because it was really a bummer because they were both playing really well and had some steam going, and then they got hurt. But you know what? I think they will, be really interesting next year. I think this is a really, really interesting team for me is the Bills for next year.
Miami Dolphins, I have to say the high is not so much a high, but I'm really excited about Devontae Parker for next year.
Yeah.
I'd say that, yeah.
Yeah. He came out strong the last third of the season, some around there. But I think he's going to be a really good grab for 2016. And although, I was really high on this team in preseason, I drafted a lot.
Everyone was.
I drafted a lot of these Dolphins.
Jarvis Landry worked out.
and they will dolphins on me.
Lamar Miller did better than I thought he would too.
Well, depending.
I have
But
extremely
Miller
low
and Jarvis
expectation.
Landry both had really bad games too. So yeah, so it was really tough. I would have to say Tannehill probably takes the cake. There just was no consistency at all in his play. He actually did better against tougher defenses, so I guess that's something to take away. So hashtag I stand with Miko. Cincinnati Bengals, Ashley.
I always love covering the Bengals. I do. So my highlight is going to be Tyler Eifert. He was great. He emerged as one of the tight ends that you could really count on in 2015. And as we all know, that is a rarity with Cubs of tight ends. So I just hope that they will be able to incorporate him in a bigger fashion next year in terms of yardage and not just touchdowns. Because we always said he's good for a touchdown. He's good for a touchdown. But I think he's got potential to do a lot more for this team. So I hope that they incorporate a little bit more. My low light is Jeremy Effin Hill and the offensive coordinator Hugh Jackson's refusal to play the better back all season long in a large capacity, which of course was Giovanni Bernard. And of course Jeremy Hill came on the very end of the year because that's who they decided to roll with. And I need to stop because I'm going to go on about this team. I can't do it.
Cat.
I hate you, Hugh.
Pittsburgh Steelers, the high, that's easy. It has to be D'Angelo Williams. He has to be the high of the team without a doubt. He came from Carolina where he hadn't found much success since 2009 to backing up the best running back in the league, in my opinion, and dominating. He is the 4th running back in fantasy points. And that is with being a clear backup with 5 or less carries in 5 games. And that includes week 17 where he only had 5 carries too, and he got hurt. So he was just a really good feel-good story of 2015. I just really proud of D'Angelo and the Pittsburgh Steelers for using him, and it was good. My low, and with that, I think that the low is losing Le'Veon Bell. I have to say that was really sad, and I know you guys picked him with your number 1 pick overall. And he was suspended for the first 2 games. You only got him for 5 games, 4.5 maybe. So that was really sad. But best of luck to both of them next year. I enjoy both of them a lot. The Baltimore Ravens, Brandon.
Well, the highlight was Kamar Aiken's emergence. The whole team just got beat up. And I don't know what his role is going to be next year because Steve Smith Sr. is coming back. Brashard Perryman is coming back, and he's a rookie that we didn't even get to see. But you know what? From week 7 on, he saw 7 or more targets in every single game, and he really kind of came to bat for that team. So that was cool. And the low light was Steve Smith Sr.'s injury. But he's coming back.
Yes.
That was
almost.
almost
He wouldn't go out like that. You knew.
Almost the highlight was when he announced that he's coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That was good. Browns, Cleveland Browns, Brandon.
Highlight is definitely hashtag Billy Manziel. It just happened, but I'm all in. And Gary Barnidge, of course. 79 receptions, 1,043 yards, and 9 touchdowns. And that was with Billy Manziel throwing the ball.
Awesome.
Really impressive. It really
Really
is.
good.
Low light, Johnny Manziel. His highest fantasy score was 16.58 points.
Clutch. I love that. And I love that everybody was drafting him and all about Manzi. Just totally into it. It's my favorite. Indianapolis Colts, Ashley.
This poor team. I just feel so bad for this team. But my highlight was seeing Matt Hasselbeck come in and play again this season. It was just, it's not super relevant fantasy-wise, but it was fun. It was fun to see. Granted, Tilly was broken in part into 2 pieces, but before that, it was fun to see this 40-year-old guy come in and try to save the team to prep him for Andrew Luck, which was never going to happen. But low light, obviously, then was Andrew Luck going down. He was a top pick and did absolutely nothing for you and caused you misery all year. That, out for the season. That was a rough one. He was probably your 1 or 2 overall pick in the entire draft.
Sad. Houston Texans, Brandon.
The highlight is they made the playoffs.
Right?
I mean,
oh, man.
Whoa. I mean, also DeAndre Hopkins, obviously. 9 or more targets in every game, save 2. Imagine if he had a quarterback. Da, 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 da. And a low light would be Brian Hoyer getting 2 concussions within a month. That is scary. And then a movie named Concussion came out, and we have to rethink how we live our lives.
You love that movie.
I haven't seen it yet.
I know.
But
I've only read articles about it.
The best.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating. I love
watched the
that line in
documentary
the
on
movie.
it.
You did?
Oh yeah,
Is it good?
it's Frontlines documentary. I told you about this. You guys have to watch it with the real person that's not Will Smith.
Yeah. I just love that line though, where they're like, "You're going up against an institution that now has the day of the week that used to belong to the church."
Well, it's funny
Great line.
they got the guy, his first person who ever did an autopsy on an NFL player. It was like one of the big stars from the Steelers. It was like a
yeah.
huge star, and he's like, comes in, he's like, "Oh my God, this guy's in your office," and he's like, "Who's that?" He had no clue. He didn't watch football. He had no clue. It's just like, it's so good. He's completely out. Doesn't know what he's getting himself into. I'm sure it's going to be a good movie. All right, Jacksonville Jaguars, Ashley.
My highlight is everything. I love this team. Seriously, I love that. You know, Blake Bortles being a top 5 quarterback of the year and really growing in his game. I thought that was amazing. And then the Allen brothers stepping up to be the second best duo in the league, only behind in terms of duos on a team, Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. All season long, we were trying to decide who was the better wide receiver too. Clearly, Decker won out, but it's just really fun to watch. I'm excited to see what they're going to do next year. My little light is I was bummed to see T.J. Yeldon go down. I want him to do well, and I want him to catch a groove, and I'm really looking forward to see what he does in the offseason, how he's going to do in 2016.
I have to say that when we drew teams, everyone was like, "Oh gosh, Ashley has terrible teams," but your terrible teams ended up being good.
Yeah, that's true. Most of my terrible teams ended up being good.
You know, the Jets and the Jaguars, we thought they were going to be disaster zones. My bad teams were bad.
That's true.
Your good teams were bad, Brandon.
My good teams, Dallas, Green Bay,
Yeah.
I mean,
Awful.
Chicago,
Awful.
San Francisco,
They were never a good
Cleveland.
team. Never good.
Wow. I hope my analysis really helped you guys win your championships this year, as in don't play these people.
Yay. Tennessee Titans, it's not so much one
Speaking of.
player this season, exactly, for a high, although Delaney Walker, love you.
Yes.
But I will not forget, and maybe this might be one of those moments, but the discussion of who was the better quarterback, Mariota or Winston, going into the 2015 season, and with that Week 1 game when Mariota just dominated, and the Titans, they just destroyed the Buccaneers. I think that's one of my favorite moments. Like, all season, really, from all of the teams, I just remember it, like, all of us being like, yeah, Mariota. They had the same yards. Actually, Winston had 1 more yard than Mariota, but Mariota had 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, and Winston had 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. I mean, it was glorious. It was a really good game to watch. And my low, with a 3-13 record, there's lots and lots of lows. Yeah, I just think the whole team in general, other than Walker, was a low. I'm not picking out one person, not singling them out. It's not fair. Just bad, and they're young guys, so I'm hoping they'll get it together and be better next year. I believe in Tennessee, I really do. For the Denver Broncos, the Denver defense for sure was by far the best part of the Broncos this year. Number 1 in fantasy points, number 1 in sacks, and tied for second for defensive touchdowns. We thought they were going to be good, but man, they were great. They were like really great. My low is no question going into the year, the Broncos, were favored to win the Super Bowl. And yes, we are going into the playoffs, or they are. But Peyton Manning, man, under center was so bad with Kubiak as his coach. That for sure had to be the low. Blake Bortles just surpassed him in interceptions in the last week of the season. but Peyton only played 10 games, so that's not anything to talk about. So he had a total of 17 interceptions and only 9 touchdowns on the season. That is bad. So I hope we can all turn things around in the playoffs, but only time will tell. Really bad. Kansas City Chiefs, Brandon.
A highlight would be that a wide receiver caught a touchdown.
Macklin going to the team had to be a highlight. He really did open up everything.
Yep.
And, a lot of people criticize Andy Reid for paying Jeremy Maclin as much as he did. But, Andy Reid, to his credit, went in with a mission. He was like, I want that player back on my team. I want his leadership. I want him as a player. I want everything about him. And I am willing to pay the price. And it was worth it. Because not only did Jeremy Maclin catch a team-high 8 touchdowns, but Albert Wilson caught 2 touchdowns, D'Anthony Thomas caught 1, and Chris Conley caught 1. So there was even more than one wide receiver.
Double digits.
Coming from a
Leadership.
0 touchdown year.
Yeah.
Big change.
Correct. Big change. And the low light had to be Jamal Charles' injury.
Ugh.
Gosh, again. And you know what? He was playing so well. So it's like, when people are like, oh, who was the biggest bust of 2015? And they mention people. It's like, well, I don't know if I'd call injuries busts.
Yeah, I don't consider it a bust.
Like Le'Veon Bell, I don't think was a bust. He got
The
hurt.
Miami Dolphins were a bust.
Right.
Eddie Lacy was a bust. Randall
Lacy.
Cobb was a bust. Aaron
DeMarco
Rodgers,
Murray.
Andrew
Calvin Johnson.
Luck.
Bust.
Andrew Luck, even before he got hurt, was a bust. Peyton Manning, even
Yes.
before he got hurt, he was a bust. Those guys are busts. I agree. The guys who went in, got you your fantasy points, and then ended up getting injured, I don't think they're busts.
Yeah, I just want to differentiate them myself.
Right. I agree. Thank you. Jamal Charles, I hope you get better.
Yeah.
Oakland Raiders, Ashley.
My highlights, Mr. Derek Carr. Gosh, he had a heck of a sophomore season when everybody was concerned he's going to have that sophomore slump. No, he did not. No reason to fear that he was going to be an RG3. Now, he has proven to be their franchise quarterback, which I think is fantastic. And I think Raiders fans everywhere should be very excited about the future of this team. I really do, which I think is they need it. They need a little love. Overall, and for my lowlights, I'm optimistic about this team, but I would like to see Amari Cooper step up and have some better production against shutdown corners. And I do know he's a rookie and that we can't expect the world from rookies. But then you see guys like Odell Beckham Jr. who did it their rookie year. But, he is slated to be a top receiver in this league. And that means that you need to be able to still produce against, playing against like Revis Island and the Josh Normans of the world and et cetera. Like that is what is expected of you if you were to be a top build receiver. So while I'm overall optimistic, I need to see that step.
Yeah, that made me think though, because Sammy Watkins, Allen Robinson, those guys figured it out this year. I wonder if that's one of the things about drafting a rookie wide receiver you have to be most cautious about is the shutdown corner situation. Do you think that's it?
Yeah.
I'm sure.
He played well in all the other games.
Not in learning the playbook, but yeah, I'd say for sure.
Yeah. Because Sammy Watkins definitely figured that out.
He did. He
much
was
better
great
this
for
year.
sure. He was great. Much better. Much improved. San Diego Chargers, high's got to be Danny Woodhead again. Was tied for the most receptions for a running back and led running backs for receiving yards by nearly 60 yards. He's clearly nominated, and he also has 6 receiving touchdowns this season, 2 more receiving touchdowns than any other running back. Bam. He didn't run the ball, but man, he caught nobody's business. That's right. It does not matter. My low, I think, is losing Keenan Allen to that lacerated kidney in Week 8. That was a big deal. And although the San Diego Chargers weren't winning games, they looked really good. They had a really awesome offense. With losing him, I just think that just messed everything up. It's just not good for fantasy owners, not good for the Chargers. So get better. Update, I think he looks good for OTAs. So just so you know.
Gotta throw it in there. Gotta throw it in there.
Just kidding. I don't have an update. I don't know if he is going to be or not, but I wanted to say it.
I didn't do one of those updates this week. I'm sorry to disappoint you guys.
Yeah, I got it in.
Good job.
All right, let's finish the show with our fantasy football New Year's resolutions. Ashley.
My fantasy football resolution will be to actually use the waiver wire. I I don't know about you guys. I always preach, go grab this guy, make sure you get him, yada yada. And I'm so busy doing analysis and other stuff that I forget the damn guy I was talking about and to go pick him up on the waiver wire to put in
You
for him.
owned Nelson Aguilar, didn't you? At the end of the season, you had him on your bench.
I did not. I did not have Nelson Aguilar.
Accusations
But
fly.
Like in our family, I think I only made 10 moves the entire season. And you look at some of the other people and they're like in the 40s. And I'm like, I did not.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mom is always really high on that one. But my other resolution will be to try to not fall asleep during the transition between the first round of games and the second round of games on Sundays. I will not grab a blanket. I will not lay down. And instead, I'm going to get a stair climber, treadmill, something that I will consciously make sure I step onto midway through the fourth quarter of the first round games. This will happen.
Good. That's a good one, Ashley. I like that. What about you, Brandon?
I'm going to draft wide receivers first.
Yep.
Period. The running back situation, I'm just going to use that waiver wire for running backs. I'm going to be okay. I actually don't ascribe to the late round quarterback in the sense that you stream every week. You just pick up someone different. I actually like getting 2 middle round guys and switching them out. And that's what I did with a lot of the leagues that I won. And I had like a Blake Bortles, Carson Palmer combo, or, like a Matthew Stafford and someone else. But you know what? If you play the matchups that way, it's great. But a lot of people don't have backup quarterbacks. And I understand that. But this year there were so many injuries. You really missed out if you didn't have 2 guys. So that's how I think I'm going to roll this year. I'm going to concentrate on wide receivers and 2 middle of the pack quarterbacks and just hope that I don't get a Tannehill Bridgewater situation.
Oof, that'd be bad.
Yeah.
That would be really bad. And that's what I was about to say. Is I think my New Year's resolution is to not fall in love with a team. You need to stay away from a team. I can't do that again this next year because Miami Dolphins really screwed me over. It really, just bad. So I'm going to just, you know what? I don't mind stacking in daily, but I'm going to try to stay away from stacking in my season longs. Just can't be so invested in one team. Unless it's somebody who's good. Miami Dolphins were not.
Like the Steelers.
Like the Steelers or the Patriots or, somebody who's constantly getting fantasy points, like, yes, if it was available, I would take Devontae Freeman and Julio Jones. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, my sleepers, I'm not going to, get them all from one team. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
That's a good idea. Sleepers. You should diversify the sleepers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I have to diverse myself in my sleepers.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and mid-round guys, too. I think, you get a mid-round guy that is going to be good, and then you get a sleeper from the same team, and if the team implodes, that just is not good. Yeah, that's it. So, absolutely, that's where I'm going with it. And I think Ashley said this another episode. Kickers, man. Was it you?
I always support kickers, so probably.
I think maybe I'm just going to take a kicker because Gostkowski scored way more fantasy points than most people's 4th-round picks. So I'm just going to go kicker.
No.
Sooner than later, people. Sooner than later.
Yes. Yes.
Now you're just talking crazy.
10th round's kicker. Bam. Gostkowski, you're on my team, my friend. All right. That's week 18. Kickers do matter. That's our wrap-up show, you guys. Love to leave it on that note. Brandon's excited. Brandon loves it. Brandon, Marianne Lee, let's get that in right now. Thank you, Ashley Williams. This was a great year. We will be back sporadically throughout the off season to update you, especially during draft time. So keep an eye on our site, herfantasyfootball.com. This will be our last show on Sirius XM for the season as well. Saturday night, 8 to 10 Eastern on Fantasy Sports Radio. So make sure you hop over there. You can call in and chat with us about your championship wins. Until then, guys, talk to us on Twitter at HerFantasyFB and on Facebook /HerFantasyFootball. See you next season, guys. No more faking it.